with all of the trackers, stop trying to perfect sleep. That doesn't automatically make you a night owl.
But I also did that classic thing of, I'll sleep when I'm dead.
People with ADHD tend to suffer with another sleep-based issue.
Yeah.
There are parts of your brain that are more active when you are asleep than when you are awake.
I didn't actually know you had to sleep.
So yes, okay, yes, you can survive on little sleep, but you just won't survive for very long. I haven't slept for 2 weeks. The answer is you have.
Okay, guys, welcome back to Confessions of an ADHDer. Oh my God, I am so excited about this episode. Thank you for tuning in to this one. I make no secret that sleep has been a bit of a love-hate relationship, bit of a journey for me. So when I found out about my ADHD diagnosis, I was like, oh my God, right, this is making so much sense. And I've really done a lot of research and reading up on this topic. But whilst I know a lot about it, I am not the expert, which is why I've brought Joshua from the Sleep Edit into this podcast episode. You are going to absolutely love it. We are going to dive into, of course, the correlation between sleep struggles and ADHD. And also, Joshua is also going to tell us why we're like a zebrafish and the best time to murder someone. So what's not to love about this podcast already? Guys, thank you so much for being here. Let's dive straight into this cracker of an episode.
For those of you that don't know me, hello, I'm Alice. I'm excited for you to be here. This is the podcast where I share my weekly ADHD-fueled fuck-ups and the science behind them in the hope that sharing a little bit of my chaos can help make sense of yours. If you don't know me, then get ready for some raw, get ready for some real, and hopefully a little bit of the science as well behind it, so you can have a that makes so much sense now moment. Just a quick note, I am not a medical professional, or a professional actually in any sense of the word. This is all about my own lived-in experience. So please grab a cuppa, get comfy, and we are going to dive in. Okay, so Confessions of an ADHD. We are doing a little bit different today because we have a special guest, which is Josh. Josh, welcome to the show. I'm very excited that you're here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
I'm really excited that Josh is here because Josh is a sleep expert. So I know that you're all about trying to make sleep simple and interesting, and I know that you've been doing it for over a decade now. And this guy, he's been featured in some publications. We're talking Vogue, BBC Good Food, and of course now ADHD, Confessions of an ADHDer. So Josh, tell us a little bit about what you do, and also why sleep? Do you know what I mean? I don't feel like many people go to school and like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Sleep. Like, yeah. How'd you get into it?
Well, weirdly enough, if you ask most adults now and you ask them what they most want to do, sleep is
Yeah, I
usually
mean,
at the top of the list.
yeah, I'm like, I just want to learn how to sleep.
So realistically, it's the typical thing, and I fell into it, as it were.
Yeah.
So I was
like all great experts.
Yeah, my degree wasn't in this, and I think it's really important for everyone to know I'm not a doctor either. Yes, I'm a professional in this field, but everything I say is descriptive, not prescriptive. And so I'm not going to be telling anybody to go out and get any drugs.
So
that's for sure. I mean, if they want to, you do what you want, but that's not what I'm going to be saying. But yeah, so I actually started all of this quite a while ago, in actual fact, working for a private company. And part of that was essentially to do a master's in public health and disease. And a very tiny little piece of that was meant to be on sleep. And I was writing about it. And this tiny little piece became quite big, at which point I was like, clearly you're interested in this, Josh. So is it a job? Turns out it was. It then became my job within the NHS for, shy of a decade. And I then moved across to another private company as a sleep clinician, helping people with sleep in general, but slightly more focused on things like obstructive sleep apnea and those sorts of things as well. But more recently, and this is why I'm here, I've started my own little social media bit on trying to explain things, because sleep is weird and wonderful. I've seen some wild ones over the years. So I think getting that out there, but also making it more approachable. It's a lot of it in the sleep world is doom and gloom. Oh, if you don't sleep, you're going to die. It's not the case, okay? We're all going to be fine. It's just about understanding these concepts. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love that. Right. So, obviously, in the true nature and spirit of Confessions of an ADHDer, my confession is, and this is going to make me sound like an absolute idiot. I think every episode does. I didn't actually know you had to sleep. Now, I know that's
Good start.
sounds fucking ridiculous, but I remember when we were chatting in DMs and I said to you, I was like, do you know what? I only discovered sleep in 2019. And you were like, what? The backstory to this, guys, is I burnt out in 2019. And now that I've burnt out, I've realised it was fucking obvious that that was going to come. It took me a long time, to be honest, about 15 years. But I was so shit hot at time management, like colour-coded diary. I was always that person that like got to meetings on time. I mean, I've also got a little bit of military background as well. So actually, if anything, I got to places early. I was that busy person, get something done, give it to Dartnell. But I also did that classic thing of, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And I think because, you know, I'm an 80s baby, obviously I don't look it, but I'm an 80s baby and I grew up in that culture of hustle, grind. If you want to be successful, you've got to go to bed when the job is done and you've got to get up at 5 a.m. and do this 5 a.m. miracle morning bullshit club because that's what successful people do, right? So I know it sounds really ridiculous, but I didn't know you had to sleep. And no one ever teaches you it in school. Like, you do biology, but no one ever teaches you the importance of sleep. So it wasn't until 2019 I burnt out. And one of my friends, Ange, gave me a book, Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep. I read it and thought, fuck, I'm fucked. Because I haven't slept properly for, what is this now, like 35 years. My poor brain, insides and everything else, I need to now learn how to sleep. And that was kind of like my journey into discovering sleep and how important it is. And I think because I am one of these people that I can actually function on quite a little sleep, that's not a good thing. But because I think I can do it, it made me not realise how important it is. That makes me sound mental, Josh, but does that make sense?
You're not mental because because everything you've said is so in line with what most people tend to think and do. So it's very much like thanks David Goggins for telling everyone that they've got to be up and, you know, you've got to be up at the crack of dawn, money never sleeps, all of those sorts of things. You've said most of those phrases. And the big one at the end there was pretty much the whole surviving, not thriving.
Yeah.
And that's because, again, it's been driven into us for so long that sleep is just kind of this passive thing. You do it at the end of the day, you wake up in the morning, you go again. And apparently there was nothing happens in between that. You close your eyes, you're unconscious, good. But in actual fact, sleep is so much more dynamic than that. There are parts of your brain that are more active when you are asleep than when you are awake. Absolutely, yeah. And in actual fact, when we start diving into the architecture and the stages of sleep, if we look at something like REM sleep, which is what most people think about vivid imagery and dreams.
Yeah.
If you look at your brain waves on an EEG, so I'm looking at all those patterns,
Yeah.
it looks almost identical to when you are awake. Yeah. Okay, there's lots going on under the surface. And even if you go back to some of the old sort of Greek philosophers and those sorts of people, so way before all of us, even they understood. So I think there's a phrase about the soul and the mind is hard at work whilst their eyes are closed. Now we get things like sleep is for wimps.
Yeah.
The language and the poetry's gone a bit.
Yeah.
So it's no wonder that people think, you know, sleep's not that great, but it's changing. It's changing.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And I think I'm a bit of a neuroscience geek and I love all this kind of thing, which is why I'm fascinated by the brain. And I think that for me was a big, shit moment in 2019. Because that was for me when I realised, like, am I fucking my brain? Because I'm not sleeping properly. And, you know, memories are consolidated when you're asleep, you know, all those kind of things. And now I am starting to sleep, and I'm not going to pretend I'm a great sleeper. Like, at the point of recording this, the last couple of weeks, I've been quite honest on my Instagram stories that I've had another blip in insomnia, and I know why. And it was basically because I was just pushing out my comfort zone, and it made me go, and my brain just went into overdrive. And that's now fine. So the last couple of nights I have slept. But I can notice such a stark contrast between this version of Alice and Alice, say, 5 years ago. like my memory and my ability to function and my focus and all that jazz. And I don't think it is just because I'm taking like lion's mane. I think it is the sleep thing. Like it affects everything, doesn't it? Like your memory, your focus and stuff like that.
Sleep is your underpinning foundation to everything else. There is pretty much, you could get the old sleep dart, throw it at the dartboard, and you will hit something that sleep has an effect on. So yes, okay, yes, you can survive on little sleep, but you just won't survive for very long. And that can happen through either burnout or, unfortunately, some other health concerns can come as a side to that.
Yeah.
Again, that's not to scare people. It's just to say, look, sleep is very, very important and we should be putting it first.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. Absolutely. So obviously, ADHD is a recent discovery for me, which obviously is fucking hilarious when you've built a business as a time management coach. I didn't discover that I had ADHD until the back end of 2024, so about a year ago. And one of the things when I was like obviously learning as much as I could as quick as possible about ADHD, sleep came up. Kept coming up about this correlation between ADHD and poor sleep. And I was like, interesting, because historically that has been a huge issue for me. What the fuck is going on there?
Where do you want to start? But what I will say is that I can introduce my confession at this point, if you like.
Yeah, go on then.
Well, which for your listeners is, I don't have ADHD, but my wife very much does. Another very recent diagnosis, albeit we knew. It was...
You're like, we know, love, we don't need a bit of paper.
We knew, yeah. But it is more a case of now, I basically get nightly anecdotal information on sleep from an ADHD perspective.
It's fun.
Yeah. But she, and much like most other people with ADHD, up to around about 80%, it sits between about 50 to 80% of people with ADHD tend to suffer with another sleep-based issue. So that means when you meet someone with ADHD, you're speaking to someone that more likely has a sleep problem than not. That's how common it is.
I didn't realise that. That's a pretty high fucking percentage.
Yeah, it is hefty. And it usually manifests from what we refer to as kind of a delayed sleep onset. So it basically means someone struggles to get to sleep. It takes them longer. It certainly feels longer. And a big part of that, don't get me wrong, is the old ADHD racing thoughts and dysfunctional thoughts, thinking about not only tomorrow, but, 9-10 years down the line, what could possibly happen if you don't get this one night of sleep. However, it's also what we tend to see is a slight alteration in what we call DLMO, which is delayed light melatonin onset. Now, basically, what that means is that melatonin production, normally when the lights go down a little bit, starts to get produced. And that's like our darkness hormone. It's your sleepy nudge. It's not hypnotic, it's not to put you to sleep, but it's your nudge. And for people with ADHD, that tends to happen about 45 to 90 minutes later. So already you are a little bit delayed on what we would see from someone that was neurotypical.
Yeah. I tasted it, obviously, got ADHD. But is this why, I don't know the science behind this. I've met a lot of ADHDers that, like me, are night owls.
Yes, so when I say delayed light melatonin onset, that doesn't automatically make you a night owl. Okay.
Yeah.
Because often what happens, or why people with ADHD think they are night owls, is either because of that, but also because of perhaps nighttime procrastination as well. We've all done it. I've done it. You sat there, you've scrolled. And before you know it, it's 1 a.m. That doesn't make you a night owl, because you could, under the right conditions, have fallen asleep. People that are true night owls, it's that they physically, if they get into bed too early, they will not be able to fall asleep.
Yeah.
So usually, yes, okay, you might be slightly delayed, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're the type of person that needs to fall asleep at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
It might do.
Yeah.
But it tends not necessarily to be the case. There's a little bit of a myth going on there, sprinkled with some truth.
Yeah, okay. That's really interesting, because obviously, as I teach time management, but I teach it for a very different because of the burnout, and I actually teach through energy management. And one of the things is that I always say to my clients is you've got to know your chronotype. So there's 4 types of chronotypes, and there are people, myself included in this, that genuinely are more nighty. I don't know if that's a scientific word. So
It can be for now, that's fine.
they're more nighty. Genuinely can feel that, because if I don't have to set an alarm, I know what my natural body clock is. So when I was living in Southeast Asia, I didn't have to set an alarm because there was never a 9 a.m. meeting for me to get up for, because I was working UK hours. And I noticed, because I didn't have to set alarms, that I was naturally waking up at 8 a.m. and naturally wanting to go to bed at midnight, 1 a.m. So I was like, okay, I feel like my body clock rhythm thing here is a genuine night owl thing. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I see this a lot in my clients. It's the classic like revenge bedtime procrastination of,
Absolutely.
I'm just going to scroll on social media because I haven't had a moment to myself today.
It's the only time I've got. Yeah. I absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is where I say it's really important for us not to be like puritanical about it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fine. If that is your only time for mental space,
Yeah.
I'm not going to take that away from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. It's just that it doesn't need to always be to the detriment of your sleep.
Yeah. Okay. So that's really interesting. So going back to that, this is this delayed melatonin thing happening, and that's one of the contributors to why ADHDers probably are struggling to sleep.
Yeah, it's partly down to that.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. What else do you see, like the correlation between ADHD and sleep?
So the other bit is what happens when you go to sleep. So this is where things get a little bit weirder.
Okay.
If you like. So normally what happens for someone neurotypical is they would move typically quite quickly into deep sleep. And what happens is through the night, the deep sleep tailors off a little bit and the ratio changes over to REM sleep or more of. Okay. It's not like half the night is deep sleep and half the night is REM. We cycle through it, which I'm sure most people listening probably know.
Yeah.
Every 90 to 120 minutes, but the ratios change. So more deep sleep at the beginning, less deep sleep at the end of the night. That's typical. What we see for people with ADHD is that the way they taper off through deep sleep is slower. So it's almost taking you longer to taper through it. And the deep sleep itself, or the power of it, if you like, is lighter, which means you are more likely to rouse or have arousals from sleep, whereas normally deep sleep is bloody hard to wake up from. That's why when, if you ever wanted to murder someone, do it in, early hours of the night.
Yeah, all right. Good tip.
Early hours of the night. Do it in the sort of the later hours, sort of your 3, 4, 5 a.m s. They're probably in light sleep. Don't do it then. Midnight. Good shout.
Well, no, I wouldn't be in bed, so bad shout.
But partly we think anyway, and I say think because lots of this research has been done on, you're like this, zebrafish. Okay, so if you really want to label someone with an odd chronotype, zebrafish. But essentially,
I used to have some of those in a tropical fish tank when I was younger.
Now, when we were looking at them, some of these zebrafish, essentially we took away, God, this is about to get boring and a bit dry. We took away what's called a period 1B gene. Okay. It's one of the genes that controls our kind of natural body clock. And because we saw that reduced, what we also saw reduced was things like dopamine. And when we start talking about ADHD and dopamine hits and sort of chasing that dopamine, all of a sudden things start making sense. Dopamine being one of those things that has an effect on the depth and the quality of our sleep as well. And so, it's, and with people with ADHD, you might be similar to a zebrafish. That period 1B gene might be slightly down-regulated.
Do you know what? I like that, because before I knew I had ADHD, my dad always said that I had a memory like a goldfish, because obviously classic forgetful. So I'm going to go back to him and go, fuck you, Dad, not a goldfish, it's a zebrafish.
Zebrafish, yeah.
Upgraded. Okay, interesting. I'm totally putting you on the spot here because I have not primed you with any of these questions. But what are some of the tips? Because I think I have had sleep coaching before, and she was brilliant, and it really did help me. And I think a lot of the tips though that you do see on the internet and stuff like that, I feel like don't always necessarily work for real life. Same with time management, it's like life don't work like that. It's not routine. And I think one of the things that I struggled with was this notion that I was reading all these sleep tips on the internet was, have a routine and go to bed and get up at the same time every single day. And I was like, if I could do that, I wouldn't have a fucking sleep issue, would I? So I was a bit like, and the whole classic, like, no caffeine after 1. Like, I just feel like they are not good tips on the internet because they're just not fucking real life. And also, let's be honest, it ain't my matcha latte that's causing this issue, is it? Like, yeah.
No, realistically, don't get me wrong. Some people are caffeine sensitive, and having caffeine late on, a stimulant, isn't going to be ideal. What we need to remember, of course, and I'm sure you know this, people with ADHD tend to be on stimulants.
Yeah.
As, necessarily always that. Although what I will say is when you first go on stimulant medication, if that's the route that you've gone down, or anybody else listening, of course, initially that will probably have an impact on your sleep and make things more difficult. But longer term, we do see that evens off a little bit. As I say, not prescribing, that's what we tend to see though in the research. Now, those tips, and the reason I sigh is because those tips, they do have kind of their own individual small effects. But you're right, lots of the time that doesn't fit around normal life. And I will say part and parcel of sort of sleep in general and those sorts of things is giving yourself a bloody break and saying, okay, I don't need to not have coffee after 10 a.m. You don't have to take essentially what I call the Huberman route.
Yeah.
And Huberman is, your science says this, you must.
Yeah. He's quite militant, isn't he?
Quite, yeah.
I like him a lot, but I am also like, he's scary.
And the stuff he says he's right. I can't say it's wrong, but the implementation of it is difficult. So usually what we see, and the things that do tend to actually work for people with ADHD sleep problems, is elements of cognitive behavioural therapy for insomnia.
Okay.
So,
cool.
not just cognitive behavioural therapy.
Yeah. So for people that don't, I've had CBT multiple times in my life, so I'm aware what it is. But if people haven't heard of that terminology, can you just explain what that is?
So CBTI, what I would say, is different from your standard cognitive behavioural therapy. There are elements of that, absolutely. But the bit that really is important, the bit that's important for people to understand, is what's called the sleep restriction part, which I know when you're not sleeping sounds mental. But essentially what we do is we ask people to keep a sleep diary. And the way that we alter that for people with ADHD, or that you can, is that you actually make the diary even smaller. So rather than asking people to keep an absolute annotated diary of everything that's happened in the day, it might be 3 things. What time did you jump in the sack? What time do you think you fell asleep?
Yeah.
And what time do you think you woke up?
Yeah.
They're usually the 3 big ones. And from that, we can get what we see essentially as sleep quality or sleep efficiency. And at that point, we can also see how long you actually think you slept. So you might spend time in bed. So let's say, for instance, you jumped in at, I'm going to say 10, just to make the maths easy here.
Yeah.
You've jumped in at 10, you've woken up at 6. That's 8 hours opportunity, which is often what people will think of when they think, how long have I slept?
Yeah.
You haven't slept that bloody long.
Yeah.
I don't get in bed and my head hits the pillow and off I go. It is, you might spend time up. You're thinking about things. You might have woken up at one point, perhaps to go to the loo. Who knows? You've woken up, you've started thinking about things. All of these things, which means that the time you slept is the number we are interested in. What I would then do with that is say, well, you only slept for 5 hours last night, Alice. Guess how long of a sleep opportunity I'm going to give you tonight? 5 hours.
Yeah.
Because very swiftly, after it becoming very, very painful for the first 2-3 nights, your brain goes, bugger. I've only got this very tiny amount of time to actually get someone to sleep here. And you find that people with insomnia symptoms, ADHD, start having much better consolidated sleep. And as soon as you get that, you can walk someone back in terms of their opportunity, usually in 15-minute chunks.
Yeah.
But yeah, so first few nights, let's say you slept 5 hours, I'd actually be looking to try and, get you into bed somewhere around about 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, if we're aiming for 6, which again sounds painful,
Yeah.
but it works.
Yeah. Interesting. I think one of the things you talk about this sleep opportunity, and I think that for me, when I was overcoming my insomnia, I got put so much pressure on myself of like, I've got to fall asleep instantly. It then gave me anxiety to fall asleep. And then obviously it's given me fucking heart palpitations. So I'm obviously not going to sleep. So it's the sleep opportunity, I think, is actually a bit of a missing bit that people don't understand. It isn't just like, don't have coffee before bed.
No, and if you're laying there and your mind is racing, just remember that's quite normal, because what happens is as you start to drift, your brain doesn't just go on off.
Yeah.
What tends to happen is we start sort of changing the way the brain is working, and different areas start, for want of a better phrase, shutting down before others. One of those is your prefrontal cortex,
Yeah.
okay, which is your bouncer, if you like, your doorman to rational thought. The one that stays active is your amygdala, which is your emotional brain. So the bouncer's gone home for the night,
Yeah.
left the amygdala to run riot. You talked about yourself being a chaos machine.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, those thoughts about, if I don't sleep now, I'm probably going to lose my job tomorrow.
Yeah.
You're not. And
I can't regulate it now. Yeah.
Yeah. And part of doing that is accepting those dysfunctional thoughts for what they are. They are dysfunctional thoughts. It's absolutely fine to have them.
Yeah.
It's about understanding that that's okay.
Yeah.
And you will sleep. You just will. You will hear, and this is one of our big bugbears, so I am going to quickly try and fit this in.
Yeah.
Is people that come and say, I haven't slept for 2 weeks. The answer is you have.
Yeah. You'd be dead.
You have. Yeah. The difference is you haven't slept as much as you would like for 2 weeks. Because yes, you absolutely would be dead.
Yeah.
People start hallucinating and having all sorts of breakdowns if you go, and I mean a full non-sleep period of more than 3 days, usually that will start to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. What you just said there just made me kind of think like, overactive amygdala and stuff like that. For me, I keep now a notepad by my bed, and the amount of times I've had to turn my little salt lamp on, obviously I'm not turning the full light on, just a little salt lamp, and just jotting down whatever shite is in my head. And do you know what? It's not even bad things. Like I'm not like a perpetual worrier. Sometimes it is just really random shit that is in there, and you're like, what? Just write it out. And then I think that act of physically getting it out of my head and onto paper really helps. So it's just so simple. So it might sound really silly, but stuff like that has really helped me. Like, have you noticed that with like the patients, clients that you work with, like just simple hacks like that?
It's not silly at all. So that is one of the things that we get people to do.
Yeah.
Typically, and it can be by your bedside, that's absolutely fine to do, by the way. Typically, what we will do, though, for people that are suffering more insomnia-based symptoms, is what you don't want to do is create an area around the bed that has a function, because then what happens is you give your insomnia a function.
Yeah.
So people that wake up in the middle of the night often will go, oh, well, I'm awake, I'm wide awake. I might as well answer that email in the middle of the night.
Yeah,
I might as well start scrolling. All of a sudden, your brain recognizes that as a pattern of, oh, well, I need to wake up at 2 a.m. because we need to do emails at 2 a.m.
Yeah, yeah.
No, if you want to do that stuff, okay, I'm not going to stop you. But you have to take yourself to a different section or a different room. And then when you come back to the bed, this is what the stimulus control part of this is. The bed is for one of two things: sleep, or if you're lucky enough, sex.
Yeah. Love it. Love it.
And that's it.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of it is habit, isn't it? And environmental cues and getting your brain and body used to certain things. And I think one of the things that has helped me is a wind down routine, because I'm literally training my brain to say, it's time for bed. So turning off the lights, well, not off, but, candles, salt lamps, etc. Big fan of playing meditation, binaural beats, subliminal, that kind of positive things. A warm drink and it might be placebo, but I don't care. It's all these just little indications being like, all right, brain's going, Dartnell's
You
ready
said
for bed
it.
now.
You've said it. It's indications. It
Yeah.
almost doesn't matter what other effect those things have got, whether it's, meditation and obviously quieting the mind, which is great. I'm certainly never stopping anyone to do that. Warm drinks, things like that, fine. It's what works for you. The important thing is indications and cues. Because if you're doing the same thing, and this is where that structure and routine actually is true, and you absolutely should follow it if you can, is do the same thing. And if you do the same thing, your brain is, as I say, is a creature of habit. It knows what that means. The problem comes from when people have lots of cues that they've had around their insomnia symptoms, because then your brain recognizes those cues for another reason entirely.
Yeah, interesting. I love that. Have you got any examples on that one? Like what
I
might
mean, the
people might...
obvious one, yeah, the obvious ones will be things like, I say, doing emails in bed. That's a cue to be awake.
Yeah.
It might be that somebody might do exercise quite late. I've seen that one quite a bit, which, stretches and things like that, perhaps a little bit of sort of very small amounts of yoga,
Yeah.
no problem. You're raising that body temperature a tad. But when we want to sleep, or one of the biggest cues to sleep is a drop in core body temperature. So if you're heating it up by doing excessive exercise,
Yeah, we don't want to be
you're
doing a
actually
spin.
making...
Yeah, no spin classes
Exactly.
before bed. I mean, spin's fucking
Which, have you
shit
ever
anyway,
seen
don't
how
get me
late
wrong.
some of those spin classes are?
Well, do you know what? I used to think this because when I used to live in London and I used to do boxing, and the class was quite late because obviously like people are working in London, yada yada. So I think the class started at 7, so it was like 7 till 9. Now I don't know if people listening to this have ever done boxing, but it's pretty fucking like gets your
It's
heart rate
grueling.
up. It's pretty grueling. So 2 hours of boxing was quite a lot, and then you're expected to be in bed by 10, and it was like no, and things like that I think contributed to my awful sleep patterns pre-burnout. Yeah,
And don't get me wrong, I say you're paddling uphill a little bit anyway. But I think things like that, which, as I say, when you just say, someone, avoid blue light, don't drink caffeine, things like that, all of those have very small impacts. But things like core body temperature is one of the biggest ones.
yeah,
And just darkness in general is the other one. And so, yes, I know people hear it all the time, but yes, actually dimming lights and turning lights off does work. It is a cue.
yeah,
What I will say is blue light in itself is there's a myth to it, in as much as it's not the most important thing. Okay, so
yeah,
often what you'll find is that people have blamed blue light on their phones for a
yeah,
very, very long time.
yeah,
And okay, it can suppress melatonin ever so slightly. But the bigger problem is the action. Because scrolling and texting and all sorts
yeah,
is a waking action,
yeah.
guess what your brain gives you?
Or maybe you're overthinking. You're looking at that text, or blah blah blah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
All you're doing is opening yourself up to
yeah.
fuel for those dysfunctional thoughts later on as well.
Yeah. Oh my god, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Oh, amazing. I could talk about sleep for ages because it is just, as I say, something I discovered quite recently. And even more so, annoyingly, obviously the link between sleep and ADHD. It's like, oh god, it's been a journey, and I think actually it is something you have to learn, especially if you've got ADHD. It's like a bit of a habit, really. Like you say, the cues and getting yourself into routines, not making bad associations between like insomnia and something else. So yeah. Josh, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. And what I love about you is that you're very practical, full of science and information, but not in the preachy way where it's like, you get it's real life, and you're not here to, ruin people's lives.
Yeah. As I say, one bad night never killed anyone.
Yeah.
And so we can all have a bad night, and occasionally it's just allowing yourself to go, okay, I had a bad night's sleep. Tomorrow might be a bit of a struggle, but I will survive.
Yeah. So true. I love that. If you could leave one bit of advice or pearl of wisdom or anything for listeners, what would it be? Preferably around sleep.
My God. In today's world anyway, with all of the trackers, stop trying to perfect sleep. Okay? It's not a number. Okay, we might try to assign it numbers and say 100 out of 100 and things like that, but that's not actually achievable. So don't try and perfect sleep. And one of the best things you can do if you've been tracking your sleep for a long time and you feel like your sleep's not actually that great, take the bloody thing off. Because all that ends up with is performance anxiety on your wrist.
Yeah. So true. Yeah. It's that like the anxiety for me was the sleep of like, oh shit, I only slept 6 hours last night. And I was like, am I making myself more tired here because I think I should be tired because I've only had 6 hours sleep? Like, and not actually going off how I feel. But yeah, okay. I love that. And if people want to come find you, stalk you, work with you, get your advice, where can we find you?
Well, the missus won't be too happy with the stalking.
Don't stalk him, guys.
Although give it a few more years, maybe she will be. I don't know. But most people can find me. I mean, it's the same title on pretty much everything, which is the.sleep.edit. And yeah, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you name it.
Fabulous, and we'll obviously make sure we link that in the show notes as well. Josh, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I know ADHDers struggle a lot with sleep, so I am 99% certain that they will also have some confessions around their sleep on this one as well. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Confessions of an ADHDer. If this episode resonated with you, then please hit follow, hit like, get in touch with myself or get in touch with Josh. Let us know what has been of interest to you. If you've got your own ADHD confession as well, then please let me know. Come find me on Instagram or somewhere, Alice_Dartnell, and I promise you are definitely not alone on your ADHD journey. So thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you at the next episode.